KevinCostner tracked down Bonnie and Clyde in this underrated neo-Western thriller. The 2019 film re-examined the Bonnie and Clyde story from the perspective of the lawman tasked with bringing them to justice. It's hard to overstate how significantly the 1967 crime movie classic Bonnie and Clyde changed the state of American filmmaking. With its striking visuals, inclusion of graphic sexual and violent content, emphasis on young protagonists, and surprisingly nihilistic themes, the film served as the gateway to the new Hollywood era of the 1970s. The film is still cited as a classic to this day, with many similar runaway crime thrillers utilizing the format that director Arthur Penn had perfected. The film grew so iconic that there was inherent trepidation about ever revisiting the material. However, the 2019 neo-Western The Highwaymen re-examined the Bonnie and Clyde story from the perspective of the lawman tasked with bringing them to justice. The project was certainly ambitious and easily could have felt like a cheap means of cashing in on the legacy of one of the greatest movies of all time. While director John Lee Hancock had directed impressive films like the inspirational sports drama The Rookie and the McDonald's origin story The Founder, nothing in his resume suggested he was suited for an investigative thriller. However, a terrific performance from KevinCostner helped transform The Highwaymen into a refreshingly old-fashioned historical genre thriller. What is The Highwaymen about? Set 2 years after Bonnie Parker, Emily Brobst, and Clyde Barrow, Edward Bossert, first initiated their reign of terror, The Highwaymen explores the convoluted efforts by the FBI and local authorities to bring the criminals to justice. The FBI is simply ill-equipped to deal with criminals who don't play by the rules, and leave no indication as to why they are committing their egregious acts of violence. However, the Texas Department of Corrections Chief Lee Simmons, John Carroll Lynch, begins to suspect that the case would be best handled by lawmen who already know the Texas area quite well. With the assistance of Governor May Ferguson, Kathy Bates, Simmons hires the former Texas Ranger Frank Hamer Costner and his former partner Benjamin Maney Galt, Woody Harrelson, to take on the dangerous mission. The Highwaymen is at its best when it's focusing on Costner and Harrelson's chemistry. While Hamer and Galt have worked on many missions together throughout their respective careers, chasing down such young and agile fugitives forces them to question their skills. Costner and Harrelson do a great job at showing the loyalty that the two have developed for each other. Even though it's been many years since they worked together last, Hamer still feels that he owes it to Galt's family to see him brought home safely, and Galt feels the same way. While the strength of their chemistry gives the film a heartwarming quality, it doesn't risk being too saccharine. Costner is often not given enough credit for how funny he can be, and the two characters trade more than a few humorous jabs at each other, turning the story into an odd buddy comedy at points. While approaching the Bonnie and Clyde story from the perspective of the authorities may seem like a dull approach, Costner and Harrelson are still playing underdogs in The Highwaymen. The FBI representatives doubt that these two older men are capable of handling a case that has befuddled their top agents and frequently lampoon their old-fashioned sleuthing skills. However, it's the knowledge of the area and knack for picking up latent details that makes Galt and Hamer perfectly suited for the case. Although there are a few exciting gunfights, The Highwaymen is often at its most successful when leaning into its investigative neo-noir elements. The Highwaymen tackles the legacy of Bonnie and Clyde. A Bonnie and Clyde remake would have been unlikely to be a success, but The Highwaymen succeeds by telling the story from a fresh perspective. Bonnie and Clyde represented a youthful aptitude for anarchy that was spurned by a resentment of the established order. Their crime spree was aimed at making use of media sensationalism to justify their violence. While Hamer and Galt are still part of the law, they also recognize that the system needs change. It's interesting to see how their old-fashioned, methodical approach comes into play when the stakes become more heightened. Unlike the FBI, Hamer and Galt aren't politically motivated, they simply want to see innocent people kept safe.